So what is a Vagrant? Vagrant is an open source project that was created to provision portable virtual machines. Okay, so with Vagrant you can spin up several virtual machines within an very short time. Okay, so it will support various type of operating systems and distributions, and it supports most of the providers, right? VirtualBox, KVM, Hyper-V, Dockers, containers, VMware and AWS. So you can use Vagrant in all those providers. It also helps to simplify the software configuration management, and it will help to increase the productivity of your environment. You can easily go ahead and provision your machines, which will help you in your real-time world. Now next we will see how we install Vagrant. Okay, so to install Vagrant you need to have a provider that should already be there. So in this course I am going to use VirtualBox as my provider. Okay, so the first important thing is that you should be having a VirtualBox already installed on your machine, and then you can go ahead and install your Vagrant. So let's see how we install it. So I will be showing you practically how it is going to get installed. So to install Vagrant, what we need to do, we have to simply go ahead and first make sure that VirtualBox is installed. VirtualBox. So if you don't know how to install VirtualBox, just go to Google, search VirtualBox. The first link you will get of Oracle VirtualBox or Oracle VM VirtualBox. Click on it, click on download VirtualBox, and based on your operating system, whatever operating system you are currently using, you can go ahead and download it. For Windows it's quite easy. You have to just press next, and it will be a guided screen that will go ahead and install your VirtualBox. For other operating system even it's not very typical, and as I am using a Linux based operating system, I just have to download my Ubuntu a specific version, and once it downloads I just simply have to go to my download folders and I have to simply install it. So I have already installed VirtualBox. So if we go ahead and see it, so VirtualBox is already installed on my system. So it is there, and currently I don't have any machines created in this VirtualBox, and we are going to provision that machine using our Vagrant tool. Now once your VirtualBox is installed, next what you have to do, again go to google.com and simple search for Vagrant, hit enter, and you will see the first link of Vagrant by HashiCorp. Okay, so you have to simply click here and you will get the option to download. Click on the download option and you will have multiple ways to download. Okay, so in case you want to download via command line interface from terminal, you can use any of those depending upon which operating system you are on CentOS, Ubuntu Debian, Fedora, Amazon Linux or Homebrew. Or you want to install on Mac, you can use the brew command. If you are on Windows, you have to just download the installer and simply install it. If you are on Debian, you have to simply download it. CentOS you have to download, and Arch Linux again you have to download. Okay, so CentOS 1 will work with most of the RPM based operating systems. So as my system is Debian based, I will download the Debian based Vagrant, and the current version when this course is being built is 2.2.16 that is available. So I will be downloading the latest version, that is the 64-bit version. So it has started downloading me the software. So let it complete. So it would be done in few seconds, and this has been installed. I will go to my download directory and I can see the Vagrant option here. I will just double click and it will start the installer. So I will just have to click on install package. It will ask me to authenticate. I will go ahead and say okay. And it has been successfully installed on my system. So to validate, I will open up a terminal and I will simply go ahead and click on which Vagrant, and it will show your Vagrant has been installed here. So it was quite simple to install the Vagrant. Now as we have already installed Vagrant, now we will see into some important configurations that are there in the Vagrant config file. So mostly these are 5 configurations that we will be seeing, that are your config of your VMbox. Okay, that which type of VM you are going to install. So that will come under your VMbox, that whether you are going to go ahead and install a specific type of operating system. So that can be your Ubuntu, you can go ahead and provision an Oracle Linux, you can provision any type of operating system. So that will be configured using your config.vm.box. Next, if you want to configure your network settings, that what should be your private IP, what should be your public IP, so you have to use the config.vm.network properties in the Vagrant config file. Then we have something called as synced folder. So that is the config.vm.synced folder. In that, what we are doing, it will be an additional folder to your guest VM. So whatever VM we are provisioning, so it will have an additional folder which will be used to mount on your guest system, and that will be showed up from your host system. So you can sync those folders as well. And then who is the provider, who is the VM provider? So that will be a config.vm.provider. So in our case, we are going to use VirtualBox as our provider. Okay, and then config.vm.provision. Provision means that what specific entities or customizations if you want to install, whenever it will provision the machine, what should be the customization that should be performed, that will come under config.vm.provision. Now what is a Vagrant Cloud? So Vagrant Cloud is a specific app which you can go over the web and you can simply download and install those VMs, provision them as quickly as possible from those predefined systems that are already built. So we just have to go to your web browser and you can discover for the pre-built Vagrant boxes. So now let's see how we do that. Now if you go ahead to the same specific URL from where we actually downloaded the Vagrant, I will go back to my home page, and if you see, there are few options: get started, download, and there you can see an option of find boxes. So if you click on the find boxes, you will see there are various pre-built boxes available, and it will have the specific details that this box would be available on what type of systems. If it is only for a provider VirtualBox, it will only run on VirtualBox. If it is available on Hyper-V, Parallels, VirtualBox, VMware, or any other provider, so all those details will be available here. So you can search based on any of those names. Okay, so let's say I will search for a VM Oracle and search it. So you can see there will be predefined image ready of these boxes. Okay, so these are specifically for these specific components. If you see here, so you can See, this is the Vagrant file that it will be using. So as earlier I told, it will be using config.vm.box, and we are going to use generic Oracle 7. Okay, so it will be available on 6 providers. So it is available on your desktop, VirtualBox, Parallel, LibVirch, Hyper-V, and Docker. So how to do that? Let's do via our terminal. Let's open the terminal and we will go ahead. So first important thing is, where do you want to create the Vagrant file? So currently I am at my home directory. I will go ahead and make a directory, let's say Vagrant, and I have made an empty directory here for Vagrant. Now the next, what we are going to do, we have to initialize the first time Vagrant, any of the Vagrant boxes. So if this is my box, what I have to simply do, just I need to simply go ahead and copy this. You don't need to do much, just copy this name or whatever is this name, and just copy and hit Vagrant initialize generic Oracle 7. Okay, so as soon as this command completes, it will create a Vagrant file in this current directory. So if I go ahead and see my current directory, what I will see, I can see a Vagrant file that is created here. If I open it, it will have the same configurations. Okay, so if you see what entries we are seeing from here that you should enter, that is already present in that file. Okay, now you can customize this file, edit this file based on your needs. Okay, because we are going to configure VMbox generic Oracle, we are going to keep it as it is, and we can use the Vagrant configure command line, so we don't have to make any changes to this line, and this line you can change in case you want to use any other predefined boxes. So if I want to use anything, let's say RoboBox Oracle 7, so I have to give this particular entity in place of generic Oracle 7. Next, you will see there are various different options that are available, how to do the networking, how to do other things. So we will come to it one by one. This is how you go ahead and download your configuration file. Now, as we have understood how to find the predefined boxes and how to go ahead and get the Vagrant file, now I am going to provision my first VM using the Vagrant. So let's go back to our terminal. So I am back to my terminal, and meanwhile I will also open my VirtualBox. So I will minimize the size so that we can see it here. So now we are going to see how to provision our first VM using the Vagrant. So now I have already opened my VirtualBox manager where I don't see any machine currently deployed. So we will see simultaneously what happens in my VirtualBox manager as well. Also verify in case you want to see any network adapters are there or not. So right now I don't have any. So I will leave it as it is, not an issue. That would be your host only adapters mostly. So I will leave it. I will go back to my terminal and go to my directory where my Vagrant configuration file is there. So right now this is the default configuration file. If you don't want to make any changes, you can simply use this to provision your OS quickly. Now what I will simply do, Vagrant up. So now it will use this file to go ahead and provision your specific box whatever you have defined. So because this box was never done before on my system, so it doesn't find any copy of this, so it will first time download. So based on your speed, it will go ahead and download the box from the Vagrant cloud. So if you see from the Vagrant cloud, it is going ahead and downloading it. So it might take time depending upon the speed of your internet provider. So let it complete. So now it has completed downloading. Now validating whether the download is proper and complete. So it has started validating. So it was successfully added. Now it is going to import that particular box image to your VirtualBox. So now if you can see on my right, there is a VM that was automatically provisioned and it has started to start my Oracle Linux 7.9, and you can see all the configurations that it has picked up for this particular VM. So it has taken the default details that are there. So it is using the default space. So now we have successfully provisioned our first box image on Oracle VirtualBox using your Vagrant. Now how we have to connect to the VM that we have just now provisioned in Oracle VirtualBox using the Vagrant. So we have a command called as Vagrant SSH that will automatically connect to the machine that was provisioned here. Now what I'm going to do, I will simply go ahead and connect to my machine using Vagrant SSH. So what it will do, it will connect to my VM automatically, and now you can see you are connected to the VM that is running here. So I can go ahead and see what are the file system, what it has installed, how much memory it has given. So all the default details are being assigned to this particular system. Now if you want, you can go ahead and make some changes to this for your working. So it's an easy way to create your deployment boxes where you can simply provision them as soon as you want, and you can discard them or destroy them whenever you want to do that. Now we have some important commands when you are working with Vagrant and managing your VMs using the Vagrant. So there are certain commands that should be normally known to you, that are Vagrant halt if you want to shut down your system, Vagrant up to start your system or the server, then Vagrant destroy if you want to destroy that system, you can use the Vagrant destroy option. Then Vagrant suspend, it will save the server state if you want to go ahead and just save it. If you want to go ahead and resume from the saved state, it will be Vagrant resume. And in case you want to make any changes to the Vagrant file, that is the configuration file, and you want to reload, so you will use the Vagrant reload option. So let's see few options. So now as we have seen few options that are very much important to be known for managing your VMs using Vagrant. So what I will do, Vagrant, so if I want to save my machine state, Vagrant suspend, so it is saving the state. Now if you see on the my right, it has saved the state of the machine. Whatever state it was there, it would be saved. Now if I want to resume it, so if I can go ahead and resume my machine back, and it will restore from the saved state. So these commands are quite easy and you can go through them. Now I am going to make few changes to my Vagrant file. Okay, so these two lines you don't have to do anything, let it be how they are. Then if you want to make any changes, like if you want to do some port forwarding from the guest to the host, you can use this line. But I want to, let's say, enable a private IP. I want to assign a private IP to my system. So that IP should be in a specific range. So, but if you see, that IP will be aligned to what? To your host only adapter. So the host only adapter in VirtualBox runs on the VirtualBox adapter. So right now my system or VirtualBox don't have any host adapters here. So I will create one. So it has created. So if you see the range 192.68.56.1, so I will try to keep it in the same range, because most of the systems that I provision I will use the same range. So I will use the same IP range here. You can make changes accordingly, and I will say insert delete 56, and I will save it. So now it will provision me with an IP that is 192.68.56.10 that will be aligned to host only adapter. Even you can go ahead and enable a public adapter which will enable via the bridged adapter. Okay, so if I enable public adapter, that means it will connect to my bridged adapter, and if you want to access internet, mostly the bridged adapter would be used. That will be used for your internet. And then if you want to sync the folders between your system, so let's say I will say I want to sync folder where from my current directory. So current directory I will just give, insert, I will give dot. So that is my current directory where I am, and it will map on the guest system that is on /vagrant_data. So it is going to map to that particular on my guest system. So if I will copy anything on my current folder, it will be seen in the /vagrant_data. And by default the VM provider is VirtualBox only, but if you want you can change it depending upon whether you are using AWS, Docker, VMware. So you can change those settings. Even if you want to customize the memory, let's say I want to have a 3 GB memory, I want to have 1 GB memory, so I can go ahead and make that changes. So let's say I will say XX. So I will enable my settings here, and end is important. So I will have enabled the config that the virtual provider is VirtualBox, and the memory I just want to give as 1024. Right now it has taken as 2048 by default, but I want to give it as 1024. Okay, so let's do meanwhile this much and let's see how it goes. So once the file changes are done, I will again run the same command vagrant up, which was used earlier. So now you see it is currently going ahead and enabling it. So it will ask me which bridge adapter do you want to use. So which is the bridge adapter from where the internet will actually work. So right now my adapter, Wi-Fi adapter is being used, so I am using the first one from where my internet will mostly run. So Wi-Fi adapter is running on my system, so I will be using the first adapter. Enter, and you will see it here, and it will provision your system. My system is completed and machine provision. So now you can see adapter. So by default it will take a NAT adapter for making the connections, but other than that there are two more adapters that we have defined, as one as the private and other one as the bridged adapter. Okay, and one shared folder is also there. Okay, so if you go to the settings, you can see all those settings, and right now it is consuming 128 GB of disk. That is per the box configuration that was being downloaded from the cloud. So these are the settings that are defined here right now, and if you see I have changed the memory to 1024, so now the memory is 1024. Display settings, other settings you can change depending on that, and the adapters are different. Now the second adapter is host only, then the bridged adapter. So I will cancel it. My VM is already running, so you have to manage it from there. You cannot go ahead and see a terminal here, okay, like normally you do. If you provision a system, you can go ahead and connect. So you have to manage via the Vagrant only. And if I do Vagrant SSH, so I was able to connect. And if I do if config, I can see the IP. This is the bridge adapter IP, and this is the IP that I defined in the private. So that is the private IP which you can use to map as well, so which can be used for mapping. And if I go to my Vagrant data, I can see the files that are present here. That is the Vagrant file. So whatever I create, let's say I go ahead and create go to my Vagrant, and this was the Vagrant file. Let's say I create a new file, empty file. I will call it as bootstrap.sh and create. So a bootstrap.sh is created, and if I go to my terminal, I can see this file will also be available on your system. So this can easily help you to provision your systems. Now if I go ahead and see, I have a Vagrant file. So there is an option again that I told earlier in the config file. There is one more option of provisioning. Okay, so what is this provisioning? Provisioning will help whenever the system is getting built. What additional options you want to go ahead and do? Let's say you want to install Ansible, you want to install Docker, Puppet, or anything specific you want to install, you can use the option as config VM provision. So I will just disable the comments and enable it. So what by default it is saying, it will go ahead and update and install Apache. But remember, this is an Oracle system, so apt-get will not be working. So what I will prefer, I will use yum here, yum update -y, and I will say insert yum install -httpd -y and save it. So now once the system will be provisioned, that time it will go ahead and install httpd, and before that it will update the repositories as well. Now as we have made the changes to the Vagrant file, but the provisioning, the system was already provisioned. So what we will do, we will destroy the system first. So what I will do, Vagrant destroy, and it will confirm. I will say yes. So it will destroy the system. So on the right side you can see the system is no more available, it's gone. Now if we have already added the entries for provisioning, that once the system will provision, it should do some specific tasks, and that is already present. So I will just now run Vagrant up command. So it will start provisioning the system. So during the provisioning, it will also run the task after the system is built. So it will first import the base box and create a VM on my VirtualBox. So my VM is provisioned. Now it is asking me the bridge. I will say first, which is fine. So the connection between your host to guest is done via your key setup. So that's why it is using the SSH key option. Of course you can connect via the specific user also, so that will also work, that's not a problem. So now see, it is running the inline script on the shell, so that we have done the running provisioner. So it is going ahead and running the shell that I have written. So it will go ahead and update the packages, and once the packages are updates, it will go ahead and install the HTTPD. So see, it is going to update these many packages. So I will allow it to run. So now it has started updating the packages. So whatever packages it has found to be required to update, it is going ahead and updating the packages. So it is almost getting completed now. So now it is building the modules for the kernel. So it's the same thing that your yum update and everything, how it works. So it is taking the same thing, but it will do automatically, so you don't have to do it manually anytime. A update is completed. Now it has started installing the HTTPD and it has completed. So now my VM provisioning is completed and it's up and running. I go ahead and see Vagrant SSH, and it has completed. And if you see, it is on the latest kernel. Now if I go ahead and connect to my root and I see what was the HTTPD, so systemctl status, HTTPD. So it says it is inactive right now, so it has successfully installed that as well. So this way you can go ahead and do the provisioning as well during the build of that system. Now I will show you a real example how we can go ahead and build a system that has already all the prereqs required for installing an Oracle e-business suite server. Okay, so Oracle e-business suite server, we have certain configurations that we want to do, so that you can do manually, but at the time of provisioning of the system as well, you can go ahead and do that. But writing all those commands, if you see, writing all those commands via the same Vagrant configuration file is not very advisable. So what I am going to do, I am going to go ahead and write these on a file, and that file I will be calling in my Vagrant configuration file. So let's see how we can do that. And this file that we are going to create are mostly called as bootstrap files. So I will open this and make sure no junk characters are there. So what I am doing, any repositories, old repositories, I am moving it. So now I have copied. So these are the steps that I want to perform once the system is up, and so I can do after the system is provisioned, and I can connect it and then I can run it one by one. But you can do that during the time of bootstrap. So I have created a file called as bootstrap.sh and I am going to run this, so it will run these commands one by one. Okay, so I will just do copy and I will exit from my here and I will halt the system. So my system would be halted, which means it will be stopped. Okay, so system is down. Now what I will do, I have my bootstrap.sh file. I will go ahead in my bootstrap.sh and I will paste the content. I will say okay, paste it, no problem. And what I am doing, I am changing the root password as well so that I can connect to the root user also. I am downloading certain RPMs, I am downloading certain prereq for Oracle EBS, I am going ahead and enabling a repository in the file, and this is the repository file that was getting downloaded. So all these steps will be done. So I will go ahead and save this file, that is bootstrap.sh. Now in my Vagrant file, what I am going to do, vi shift insert. So where we have written this, right? So what I am going to do, I don't want to type all those things in the configuration file, so I will comment all this. You can do via this method also. You can type everything or copy paste everything here in place of these yums, and it will also work the same way, but I will be using that file. So I will say in place of inline, I will put path colon, and what I will give, what should be the path here, simply go ahead and give it, which is your file path. So I will go ahead and say my file path is, because it is in the same directory, bootstrap.sh. So this is the file that would be executed, and I don't need to run it in any shell, so I will go ahead and delete these lines shell, and I will also comment this line. Okay, so it will now provision directly the bootstrap.sh. So now once we have added the bootstrap file in my Vagrant configuration file, I am going to destroy this system Vagrant destroy, and it will remove the system, and the system is destroyed, and I will up the system now so that it will provision with the new settings. You can also connect to the virtual system, and you can go ahead and install them manually as well. So my system is up, I will give the adapter, and it will start configuring the network interfaces as well. So I will let it run and make sure that it completes. So it might take time, so we have to wait. So now my system provisioning is completed. Now I will connect Vagrant SSH, which will be used for connecting, and if I see whatever I have done, so it would have created certain users automatically. So all those tasks are automatically completed by the provisioning itself. So we already have all the setups available here. Now if we remember, we have also changed the root password, so we can directly connect via root as well, root @ and the host only adapter IP what I have given 192.168.56.10, and I can say yes, and I can go ahead and connect via this method as well. So it will directly connect to your root. So this way you can use your Vagrant for various different purposes. Thank you for going through this course. I hope you have enjoyed and learned something new during the course tenure. I hope to see you in some other courses soon.